This is Shelby,
And this is Jess.
and welcome to the League of Extraordinary Readers. Today, we have a guest with a book that is probably going to be on my list of favorites, not only for the content and the style of the book, but for the book cover. I love pictures. Y'all might know Jess is also a photographer. You know, my friend got like 15 jobs. Shanda McManus is a family medicine physician and native Philadelphian, um, right, who writes about the intersection of life, race, and medicine. Her writing has appeared in the Intima Journal of Narrative Medicine, Midnight in Indigo, Bellevue Literary Review, and Swamp Pink. Shonda has been a fellow with PEN America Emerging Voices in Creative Nonfiction and Baldwin for the Arts. Her debut memoir, Brother Epistles, is now out from Sliplit Press. Shonda, thank you for coming. How are
Thank
you?
you.
I'm great. It is awesome to be here, in this space talking books, which I
Yeah,
love.
Yes, we love
awesome.
books
Awesome.
too. I feel like books is the one thing that brings us together in a lot of different ways, right? Like you talk a lot about music in this book, which was something that really stood out to me because music is big in my life. Um I was just talking to I was just with my family over the weekend for the holiday, and music is like the one thing that is always consistent in my memories with my mom's side of the family specifically. So that one particular part where you were talking about hip hop and describing that what it looks like now to your brother, but also with your memories of it. That's how I remember like my childhood with my family. Like it's always tied to some kind of music. But I think, and I don't think we give music enough credit. I think that is our first relationship with literacy. It's music.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're words, they're singing, the words touch your soul. And before you can even read, you're listening to those songs and music. Like I was nursed on R&B and soul, between my parents' house, my grandparents. I never went to any house that there wasn't a record playing or eight track
Right,
or even in the car. The car was never silent either. In
right.
Philly, we had WDAS, that would be on, or, a little cassette. So, yeah, music was like milk.
Yeah, I think that's something to be said for like most black, like across the diaspora. I think that's something, but I don't think we connected enough to literacy into books, right? Like that was it's connected to our storytelling somehow.
Yeah.
In the way that we, gather, in the way that we honor each other, and you know, even how we honor our dead, right? Funerals. There's always singing.
Always sing,
Yeah.
always song. I think it like calls us into unity and words. And it's just something about, I think music creates like that liminal space, right? It gives us access to this other space. You've been in church, and then when everyone's singing and clapping, you're not just in church anymore. You're in this other place. So I think that that's what music does in our communities and for our souls.
Absolutely. Like that scene from
Absolutely.
Sinners where it was like you could see all the
Yes.
different, right?
Yeah,
That's why it was so powerful,
when
you know?
I saw that scene in Sitters, I was in there with my youngest daughter, and we both turned and looked at each other
Yeah.
Yes.
like
It was a
blown
moment.
away. And I think that
Yeah.
that scene just encapsulates what we're talking about. All our history, all our people, is in that music and that movement and in the words, right?
Yep, it's in the
You
Hmm.
know,
words.
and in the
It's
words.
a universal language where we can communicate with each other even if we don't have the same language,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know, even if we don't have
Yeah.
the words. So Jess, you want to start out with the
Yeah,
first few
for sure.
questions?
Yeah. So, Brother Epistles is such a beautiful book when it's dealing with grief and how you cultivated this. And as we were talking about culture and history, I wanted to know more about the process of writing this book, and how that helped you trace back your history or some moments and memories that you were going through while writing this book?
That is a great question because all right, I had just drafted another manuscript, my first manuscript, and it was really just about my childhood growing up. We lost our mother when I was 14. She had like ovarian cancer, and there was a lots of drama and stuff around there. My dad was one of the biggest marijuana dealers in North Philadelphia. So there was just a lot of stuff that went on in this little compressed time period. But as soon as I finished that draft, I just had this like, I just wanted to talk to my brother. I was not writing a book. I had just not been able to talk to him. And after writing that manuscript all about growing up, he's the only person, we were only 18 months apart, that just that I could reminisce and talk. Oh, you remember when that happened? So then I just started writing letters, and I swear I wasn't writing a book, but once I had started, it was like, and I had this big old stack of things, and one of my friends was like, I mean, maybe that's a book, And then I just said, well, I don't know, is it? And then I went back and looked at it. And the thing about the letters, for me, I had shut that grief down. My brother was murdered on Christmas Eve, 1992. I was in medical school. I had just finished like my first little semester. He was supposed to pick me up that night. All that happened, and I was back in school on January 3rd. All right. And I was just like, look, if I get off this train, no one in my family went to college, let alone medical school. I had, lost my mother. Then right after that, my grandmother. Now my brother. I felt like if I get off, I don't know where I would go. So I just pushed it down. And it was like literally 3 decades before I could go back in, and what I call it in the book and when I think about it, I put a tourniquet on it, right? I'm just like, look, we just gotta shut that down, stop the bleeding so we can go on. But you can't you can't live like that. Or if you do, you're not living all the way. Like I did things. I finished school, I got married, had 5 kids, I go to work, I see pay, I do all this stuff, but there was a part of me that was in shadow that wasn't realized because it was so wrapped up in my relationship with my brother, right? And so when you lose someone like that, uh, all you can think about is how they died every time you think about them. And that's just so terrible. You don't want to think about it. So then you don't think about other things. You don't think about the laughter. You don't think about the music. You don't think about the jokes. You don't think about any of that because first you got to think of that real painful thing, and I did that for years. So when I was finally in a space where I felt emotionally secure, psychologically secure, and secure in my life that I could finally go and look at the grief, right? And then something crazy happened. I was able to look at it, hold it, but then all this other things, the good things, I was able to hold that too, you know? So I
Mhm.
think that being finally able to write and look at that grief let me form a scar, right? Instead of like this festering wound or something that was just under the surface, kind of leaking or just making me not everything I could be, And
Mm,
I say a scar because it's never over, right? You don't get over it. You
Hmm.
that whole idea that you get over grief is just not true. You don't get
Jess
mm.
and I
yeah.
was
We were
explaining that
just
to
talking
Jess last week. So we
this week.
read on Witness and Despair by Jesmine Ward.
Well,
And
I just
she
bought that. I just bought that.
you're gonna
You're gonna
absolutely
love
love
it.
it.
Yeah.
Jasmine has experienced a lot of grief in her life.
Hmm.
And she writes about it in a way that's so eloquent. And Jess was talking about how there are bits that were repetitive. And I was saying to her, as somebody that also has experienced a lot of grief, I'm like, friend, there are bits of what Jasmine is talking about that you won't understand, unfortunately, until you actually experience it. Because grief does feel like a consistent loop of remembering that your people are not here.
Hmm. Yep.
And it differs per how the person is gone, like how the person passes, right? So, like when my grandmother passed away, like I was there holding her hand, right? Like I got to say goodbye to my grandmother. She was sick. My mom and I were there taking care of her until the very end, okay? But my pop-up, like that was sudden. I was supposed to see him the day before. And then the next morning we were getting a phone call that he was gone. And I've never, like I can't even explain to people what it sounded like hearing my mother scream like that. Like I don't know to like I don't know how to like verbalize that feeling, right? And I had to do something similar where it was like my mother's last living parent was gone. I couldn't have like I had a moment where I cried and then I immediately jumped into okay,
Mhm.
what do we do? How do I make sure my mother is okay? Like I remember calling my boss like I'm going to be late to work because my grandfather died, but I just got to make sure my mom is good and then like I'll be at work. And he was like, "You mean like the man that's raised you?" Like he was like, "You're not coming here. Like I will lock you out of this bank. You're not coming here." And him me and his wife were close at the time and she called me and she was like, "Shelby, do not." And I was like, I have to go somewhere. Like, I have to do something. I have to keep moving. Like, I can't sit here. Like, I can't just be because I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know what that means if I'm just stationary.
Mhm.
So it is one of those things where you never it it's just it's a loop.
Yeah, it's a loop. And that's what, like, when I thought about my book, like, I thought of it in terms of a shape. It's a spiral. And the point is the murder, right? And all this, we go, but we keep passing through that point because it's a spiral and you keep passing through. And I think that's interesting what you said, like, in my family, I was the person. Like, my mom passed at 14. Who planned the funeral? Who went to the funeral?
Mhm.
Got the life insurance policy. We went to live my grandma with my grandmom. She passes suddenly, tractor trailer, hit their car. Same thing. So I'm 17. I got two funerals under my belt, right? And then so sometimes your position in a family or your position as the black woman, right, in America, strong and I think that there has to be acknowledgement that some people aren't afforded the space to grieve. Almost like
Yes.
grief can be a privilege, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And, but grief is a very human thing. And I think acknowledging our whole humanity, like we're human, we're not a superhero, we are flesh and bone, right? And so I think I would like people to know to just recognize that. Sometimes you have to realize, hey, I can't go in that grief right now, but at some point, I need to take space for that grief. And I just
Yeah.
wish more, especially Black women, just were aware of that and all that
Yeah.
we carry, right? Just quietly, it's seeping in, but it's affecting our bodies. It's wearing us out from the inside. Our health outcomes, I know as a physician, are worse almost on every metric. We do worse. And part of that is, a little bit of this, what we carry that we're not able to integrate and take space for.
Yeah.
Right. I was
Absolutely.
saying to I think Jess and I have had this conversation, but I was saying to my mom, I was like, I wish we taught children more about grief than we do anything else because I'm like if we're looking at it in a literal sense, we're always grieving something, right? Grief is just the closing of doors, right? So it's like we're always losing something, whether it's we're transitioning from one grade to another, that's a loss of something. We're going from one job to another, we're losing friendships, right? We have to grieve
Mhm.
all of these things and we're not equipping them with the tools. And then these big losses come and they don't know how to handle them.
You don't know. Did
Yeah,
you
you don't.
see in the last week that New Jersey is going to mandate some sort of grief curriculum
I
in
didn't hear that.
school? I mean, I think we
Mm.
still have a long way to go, but I mean, that's a start. I think it needs to be normalized. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it
in the
does.
way that things happen, people you love die, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
only one way out of here.
right. And everything isn't happy all the time, and sometimes you carry pain along with your joy, and that's okay. And I
Yeah.
think more, because I could have used it as a child. And did you know that Black children are twice as likely to lose a parent in childhood? than
Wow.
children. And young Black adults below 30 are much more likely to have lost three family members, like close family,
Mm,
by age 30. So it's something, for all people, but in particular for our communities, which
yeah.
we see and carry more loss because of things like gun violence, because of health disparities, because of a lot of things. And so I think I would love that conversation to be had, more and
Yeah.
to bring it into more spaces. And like I said, sometimes we just have to take the space, right?
I think
Like everything
Yeah.
else.
that's
Hmm.
why I've been so my it's been a year since my dad has passed. And I think something that has helped me is just being open. Like my mom will ask me some days like, "You okay? What's wrong?" And I'll be like, "My daddy's dead."
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. My daddy's dead. Today he's dead. And tomorrow it may just be I miss him. But today he's dead, and that's making me angry.
Hmm.
you know and every day, every minute, sometimes it's different. I had a doctor's appointment the other day, and I was anxious about it, and I wanted to call my dad. Like, I wanted to specifically talk to my dad, and I couldn't. That's the thing. um but I haven't always had that type of grieving. Or it's I have a dark sense of humor. So like the day after my dad passed, my mom was in her room and she was coughing. And it wasn't just like she was like choking on something. She was like hacking. And I yelled through this apartment. I was like, he just died yesterday, girl. Like, get it together. Get it together, girl. Tighten up. I can't take nothing else right now, okay? But having the space
Hmm.
to grieve out loud in those moments,
Yeah.
right? To be me, to grieve and whatever it looks like for me helps. And I don't think when my grandfather, I don't think I cried about when my papa passed for a long time. And I remember the first time like crying in front of my mother was he my grandfather was a person we call he was handyman, so if something was wrong we would call him. And I think I had to like change the doorknob, and I could do it because I was always with him. He taught me how to do it. But it was like the first time I had to do something and I couldn't call him, and I was standing in like sobbing trying to put this doorknob on, and my mother was looking at me like, I thought you were okay. And I'm looking at her like, I don't know how you thought that, girl. I don't know I don't know I don't know.
Yeah.
I was making sure you was all right. So it's like it's something that the kids need. It's something that we all need, but especially as Black women, we don't always have the space to feel in
Yeah.
general. Like we don't even
Yeah.
have space to be joyful, let alone sad.
Yeah.
Forget depressed or anxious or autistic or any of the other things, right?
Yeah.
Let
A
alone
wide
grief.
scope of human e- experiences and emotions. We're entitled to that. We're
Yeah.
entitled to that humanity. But I think even within our own community, sometimes it's like, well, how long has it been? What does that have to do with anything?
Hello.
Right.
Well, it's time
Hmm.
and I think we need to really leave that alone. And like I said, it's never over.
It's
It could
never
be
over.
50 years, it could be 5 days. And I think, supporting one another in community, whenever those tears come or don't come, or just let people be and say it's okay, you know?
Yeah.
He's having a
Absolutely.
moments and being okay with that. Just give him a tissue.
Hmm.
You
I
know.
think people need to be okay with also just being just there. Like
Yes.
it's okay because I had to learn that as well. Because like Shelby was saying, we had a conversation. I haven't lost anybody super close, but I've had friends. Like my best friend lost her mom to cancer, literally while I was in college, and it was so sudden. Like we were all involved in trying to make sure she was okay and everything, but it was so sudden. So it was just like, what do we do? And it
Mhm.
was such one of the most closest losses I've witnessed, especially having such a close best friend. And then I had to learn like it's okay just to be like just to give her the space. And then shortly after that, maybe 5 years later, her dad passes away,
Mm.
right? And so again, it's just giving her the space just to be and feel. And I learned that as a friend, like it's okay to not say everything. Like just give people space, to give people time, just to be. You don't have to have the words. You don't have to know everything. It's literally just like, I'm just here to listen. That's it.
Yep. I
You
think
know?
that's
Sometimes
great because people
you
worry
gotta
about, oh,
send.
what do I say? What am I
Yeah.
supposed to do? Or can I do it?
Hmm.
Just show up for the person, be there, check on, be what they need,
Yeah.
be what
Right.
they need,
Yeah.
and don't turn away because sometimes
Yeah.
we feel uncomfortable with the loss,
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
uncomfortable for us. So maybe we do pull back a little bit when we should be really pushing in by
Yeah.
just going, and maybe you just sit there and you just be quiet. Well,
Yeah.
that's it. And that's
Yeah.
okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Just being there
Just
is
being there.
supportive as well. I always offer
Yeah.
that to people. I'm like, I listen, what you need. I could just sit there. We could just be on the phone. We can share space. If you want me to talk about something, I got books to talk about. I can do that all day. Like, what version of me do you need? Like, what we
Yeah.
doing? We crying? Not you start crying in front of me. I'm gonna cry with you. That's just a ripple effect. But what you need. Um,
Yeah.
I just think grief is I think we've just become a community that is hidden so much, right? And we've done that out of safety. We've
Yeah.
done it
Yeah.
to 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 protect ourselves. It's out of preservation. And
And
so I don't
to survive,
yeah, so I
like,
don't fault
yeah.
us for that, but I also think we need to recognize that and try to slowly undo it. Like a sharing is going to be how we ultimately heal as a community. In so many things, like right, like not just in grief, in health,
Yes.
like some of the health issues that my mom and I have experienced, like talking to family members, we've just been like, why we ain't notice?
But yeah,
Yeah.
Why we ain't know?
the silence, and that was the motivation, why share all this stuff in the book, right? Why put it out there? Because I think there's a power in that. It's the power of letting people see, right? Because they have their own things, different but similar things that you might not say, or you might hide, or you might feel ashamed. You put it out there, that just dissipates, and you never know who might pick up your story or come across something you say and be like moved and strengthened,
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think books can do that. Like for me, like I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings. When I read that, I was a teenager and I was just like, wow, look at this story. Look what she said. And I just felt so lifted up by that book and story, and it stayed with me forever. That yes, you can share horrible things and still be all right, and maybe be better than all right, when
Yes.
you do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is there anything like ritual wise that you do while you're writing, especially something so heavy like grief?
Yeah, I'm really like, I think I'm like a spurt person. Like once I'm writing, I need to hold the thread. So, I try to stick to like writing early in the morning, before work, before people get up and start asking me questions while it's fresh, and just keep hold of what the thread. Like, even if I'm like, whatever, one day I can't do it, I try to think of the story. So I think when I'm drafting something new, I got to keep touch with the story, you know?
Mm, okay. No, that makes sense. And so like you'll wake up like maybe like 2, 3 hours earlier than everybody. How old are your kids, by the way, if you don't mind
My
me
God,
asking?
yes. Well, my oldest is 31. So, right, and my youngest is 18. So,
Okay.
Oh, there's a
all
big
in
gap.
between.
Okay.
Yeah, so now they're, and the last one is about to ship off, but then someone comes back. I have my youngest just graduated from college, he's back. So, but yeah, so when
Mm-hmm.
I was really drafting this at the time, there were three of them here, and it was that COVID year and the back to
Oh, okay.
school and
Okay.
working, family practice out in the community. It was terrible. But actually, like writing gave me like a space to return to after that day where I could kind of go into this other world. So it was very protective that way. But yeah, I had to get up earlier, and like in my house, I don't have my own office. I'd be in the family room, and I just had to teach them that you can't talk to me, right? They come downstairs, Mom, where's it? I would just take a minute, hmm, uh, huh. And then they just learn, leave her alone. And then, sometimes you just got to take your space. And
Yes.
so that's what I did. But some days, if I was lucky, it was an hour and a half. If not, it was 15 minutes, you know. And so I think, I just try to be a little bit flexible with myself, but also accountable, because
Mm,
there's time, right? If I got time to watch Netflix or do this
Right.
little thing, or then I got that'll, if I got time to do the dishes and think of the dinner, then I have time to write this, work on this work if it's that important, right? Because the important things get done, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm gonna definitely do what's the top of the list. So I think I just kind of through drafting figured that out for myself, you know, and tried to
Nice.
just tell myself the truth about my time, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's so whenever we ask these questions, it's always interesting to hear what authors say and how they balance time because everybody's just so different. Like Clavis, Natera,
Get out of my
she does
head. Get out
everything
of my
in the world.
head. That's the first person that came to my mind. Clavis
Yeah, but
is literally Superwoman embodied because when
yeah.
I tell you that lady she also has like 57 jobs. She's doing everything
Mm-hmm.
at one time. And then she's like, oh yeah, I get up like 4 o'clock in the morning. I write a certain amount of words. I do this. And then she's running marathons in her spare time.
5Ks.
She has,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, she has multiple kids, but they're still at that age where I don't even think all of her kids are in high school yet. So they're still like, they're not all self sufficient yet, right? Like at least you have kids that are of the age if they are home, they're mostly self sufficient. So like they bothering you just to bother you
Yeah.
at some point,
Mhm.
right? No, she still got the ones that like she needs to go in there and make sure they actually taking a shower when you told them to take a shower.
Oh my gosh.
And then she's a professor, so she grade papers, she doing the school thing. But then like this past week, I believe she was just in Jamaica for like a
Yeah, at the like something book fairy
book event.
something.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was like, girl, when do
She
you
be
sleep?
everywhere, and she be at all your book events.
That's
All of them, like, and then like her personal time, like I'll look up because I'll hear my name and it's Clavis. She like, hey girl, friend, I just saw your social media. You just were on a plane. How did you get
Bitch,
here?
she does a lot.
She either has a clone or
Hmm.
she has cracked the code to time travel and hasn't told anybody yet.
It's interesting. Like you balance it out very well. That is who I think you guys have similar writing patterns because she's
Yes,
like,
because
yeah, I get up at 4 a.m. and be writing. I'd be like, wow, that's early.
it's just the
She's
first part
yeah.
of the day, and
Hmm.
all the things, Mom, where's this, or what's this, or does it, when you're the mom in the house, everyone
yeah,
needs to talk to you, or can't find something, or this urgent thing, or sign this paper, or da. So, and then once that gets in, then I'm like, what was I writing about?
right.
I'm
You
like
can't.
interrupted. So
Mhm.
that uninterrupted time is like gold.
Mm, you cherish it. I
Now
feel
you're
that.
making me question myself when I be bothering my mother during the day because I surely be standing in the hallway like looking for something. And as soon as I can't see it, first thing, mommy,
Uh-huh. Yep. Yep. Yep.
I don't be needing that lady. No,
Leave her
but
alone.
she does it back. So I feel like it's all fair in love and war because she does the same thing to me.
It's true.
I can see it in her eyes when she do it too because she do it on
Hmm.
purpose. But how do you think grieving your brother has impacted how you grieve other people or things in your life?
You know what? I think, by the time my brother, I had lost my mother, my grandmom, who was like my second mom. Like, she was 39 when I was born. My mom was 19. I lived in our house. She used to come get me every weekend. I was her baby. Okay. So, so that was like three things, right? All at once. And in between, my best friend from high school, I was a junior in college. I lost her. And so I think I stuffed it all down, right? So when it all comes to the surface, I'm like, okay, it's okay, right? Like, because a part of me felt like I would just fly off in the little pieces, like I would have a breakdown, if
Mm,
I really let that grief just hit me. If I let it touch me, I'm holding the world together. The world might explode. And it didn't, you know? And and
right.
and and I have a really supportive husband. I'm like I said, emotionally and psychologically safe. So I think that allowed me to go in and see that it was okay, to say, okay, I could be on the floor falling out crying and it's okay, right? I can have that moment, and then I can get up and make dinner or not, and just little by little, it was like dipping my toe into the, when you getting in a cold pool, you're like, oh, you got to work your way up to it.
You gotta
And
acclimate.
then,
Hmm.
and then you get in there and you like your feet are in and you're like, okay. And then before you know it, you're up to here. And I think for me, like, doing this work let me go in that pool. And I think going forward, I'll be much more likely to let the grief in, you know. And also, like I said, I'm not so in a survival mode, you know, girl
Mm,
from North Philly trying to get out of here, you know. I'm like, okay, I have a house
right.
and, a clean neighborhood I live, like I'm not like, that. So I think also that will allow me, because griefs are gonna come, right? And now I think I'm much less afraid to let it in and to let it wash over you, you know?
Yeah, it's not all consuming.
Yeah,
I
or
think that's
yeah.
that's something that I've been trying to work through. Like I was saying to my little cousin, I was like, my mom having any kind of health anything now. Like she sneezes and I panic because my dad not being here. And my dad was sick for a very long time. My dad had been sick most of my life, right?
Mhm.
There was always the possibility that I could wake up and that it was daddy was going to be gone. But I don't think that I was ever really thinking about what that meant. And him not being here made it real that, like, oh, parents die?
Mm. Yep.
Like, parents do that. Like, one day I'm not going to have, right? And there's this, like my dad and I didn't have the greatest relationship. So I think what was um radicalizing for me was how painful it was.
Mm.
Like that day, I was so afraid of being left alone because I said, I know that I'm able to mask and I'm able to be okay when people are around me. And I know that the first moment that I'm by myself, I'm going to break.
Mhm.
And my friends literally kept me out until like 3 o'clock in the morning. I finally got home and I didn't have a choice, right? It was like everybody that I called, nobody was answering the phone. I did not have a choice. And I laid in my bed and I cried. So I've never cried that hard in my life. And all I could think was, I actually like my mother.
Mhm.
Like I like my mommy.
Mhm.
Like as a person, I
Yeah.
like her. I think my mom is like pretty, like I think she's dope. I like hanging out with her. We read books together. Like she's kind of cool. And I like the woman that I've watched her become outside of who she is as my mother. But this is what it feels like when a man that didn't show up for me in ways that I needed him to dies. What's gonna happen with, like, I'm like, it's gonna be the first like double decker casket in history because they're gonna have to take me too.
Yeah, that's a process, like I said, like my dad is still here, and
Mhm.
that is my guy. I love, like, there were I could never even think of losing my dad. Like, I'm just like, I
Right.
don't have nobody but him. Like, in that way. Like, nobody from that little family. It's just me and him. But, I think one thing this book has done is really show me that the relationship doesn't have to end at death, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Like, I was able to cross into this space where I could feel my brother again. Like, I felt like there is something there that's flowing back and forth. right, that I have access to. Like his youngest son got married a couple weeks ago, and I'm sitting there at the wedding, and I could just feel my brother in a way that I hadn't been able to feel before. And so that really makes me feel hope that when, other losses come, it doesn't have to be,
To be.
right?
Mm.
There is
Yeah.
Homeowners.
still some
Yeah.
communion possible.
Yes.
You can still be relational on
Yes.
the other side. And I think
I
that
Yeah.
believe
that
that.
is something of value that I didn't have before I went through this process of writing this book.
Absolutely. That's like the other day, so Jess and I are participating in this reading challenge called the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. And we have like there are side quests that'll be released every month. And this month's side quest, one of them was to read a book that has the color teal or turquoise in the cover.
Hmm.
And I'm looking around my living room because that's where a lot of my books are, trying to like just kind of glance in to see if I spot anything blue. And everything that I looked at was this specific shade of light blue. And I had to laugh because I was like, that's my dad. My dad is doing that. Because
Hmm.
there was this movie with this joke about like periwinkle blue. And I was like, even in death, my daddy is a troll.
Hmm.
Like, sir, that's not the shade of blue I'm looking for. Like, move out of my way. But in my head, I'm like, I know he is somewhere giggling because it was like every book I looked at, I'm like, I know every book in here is not light blue. Like, what is happening right now? Am I going crazy? But I was like, it's my daddy. My daddy's doing that to me. So I agree. There still is a tie to or a connection. Like things will happen and I can smell my grandmother,
Hmm.
which always creeps me out because I'm like, lady, you're supposed to be you're supposed to be gone. I did also enjoy you talking about dreams because I dream a lot.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that also helps. Um
Yeah, and I really feel like one, we don't know everything, right? There's some
mhm.
things that will happen and you can't explain it, right? And so that that dream space, what is it? I don't know, but it was something, and I was in that dream, and it was real, you know. And I think, and that's one thing I want to talk about a little bit about craft because, in some writing circles, oh, don't write any dreams in your book. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like,
Mm.
what? I just was like that little advice I just put in the trash because it was just what came out, and I'm gonna edit it out because someone says, and I start the book like that, and I just
Yeah.
and I just
Mhm.
feel like just for me that was the right thing. So I would encourage other writers. Sometimes the rules don't apply.
They don't.
Yeah, no,
It
they
It's
don't.
don't.
any art form. The rules don't always
Yeah,
apply. You can
yeah,
come out with the best thing, and you bypass all the rules because you're just doing whatever you feel compelled and feel passionate about. Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, no, and I feel like that's where the creativity really comes in, right? When you are able to play with things like that, right? I feel like some of the best things people have done is when someone has told them not to do it. And then
Hmm.
they figure out a way, and then they're like, "What you mean don't do it?" And then they do it anyway, and it pushes them beyond what they thought that they could do to begin with, you know?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I would think, any artist out there, trust yourself, like if you really feel like, because I feel like this story chose the form, the letter form.
Hmm.
It just felt like it was right. It was easy for me to drop into the voice. Like that to me, that was just it just came. And I think it was because of the form. So I would encourage people, if you're making something and it wants to be a certain shape, let it be that shape.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. Totally agree. It reminds me of a friend, like Shelby mentioned, I'm a photographer. And so my friend, she had rolls of film because we were doing like peer reviews and stuff. And she had these rolls of films that she washed in bleach. And to a photographer, you're like, oh my gosh, why would you do that? But the photos look great. But if you're in school, they would probably banish you for doing that. But I was like, you took a risk and this looks amazing. So I think
Right.
always taking the risk is better than not doing it, because all you can do is wonder like what would it feel like, you know? I also want to know like, was writing letters taking a risk against what, maybe professors or mentors have told you, or was it just like, I'm just gonna do it, just gotta feel like it?
Yeah, I kind of was just like I said before, I didn't even think it was a book. It was just like
Mm,
all the stuff, and then I was like, the letters seem, and then I was like, have there been books of letters? So then I'm looking like The Color Purple is a letter, right? Between the World, is a let is one long letter. So a lot of these books are in a letter format that we don't really think of because it just. So I was like, it's okay, and also even though it's not a letter, heavy uses that second person. And I think it's something about that address that can put you in a different relationship to the material. It's
mhm,
like, I think closer, more intimate, more confessional. And I just
mhm,
felt like that's what the book wanted, you know?
mhm.
It
Totally,
does feel
totally.
very intimate when you're reading it.
Yeah,
Like it feels like a conversation.
yeah, yeah. I like it. Um, what do you want readers the most to take away from this book? And what do you see like this impacting contemporary literature?
Well, I think as far as readers, the main thing, I wanted readers to feel something. I want them to feel like when people say they cried or they thought something, they laughed, I want them to have that real emotion, because I feel like we hear about, this was shot, this disaster, this thing, all the news things, but we don't stop. I mean, murder is one of the worst moral crimes that can happen in humanity, and we just hear it all the time. So I want people to feel it, to slow down and sit in it and just realize the pain of it, right? Because I think if people feel, they're inclined towards action, you know,
Mm,
when we can
mhm,
be moved. So that's what I really would want. And I think as far as contemporary literature, I think for me this book is very personal, it's intimate, but there's also a bit of advocacy built in, a bit of commentary on things, that like I felt like when my brother was murdered, people kind of blamed him for his own murder. Well, you shouldn't have been out there. Well, you shouldn't have been this. But it's the number one cause of death for young black men ages 15 to 24. That's a structural problem. So I kind of want that zoom out. So I think like that's the power of literature, right? To point through story, right? Through a real human experience, these other structural societal things and say, hey, we need to change that. You know, this
yeah,
this so I think that's the power of stories, right? You're in this story, you're enjoying the story, but it also can move you to think about like what does this story mean? What does this story say about our world and how we have it set up?
yeah. I like that you mentioned desensitization, being desensitized. Sorry, being desensitized to death in terms of like murder or like whatever, like especially murder of like black boys and black bodies in general, because I think I remember specifically when Trayvon Martin passed away, we were the same age, but then it kept happening over and over and over in my lifetime of seeing it on social media. And then sometimes you're just like, oh wow, another one. Like even this
Yeah.
past week with Nolan,
Mm-hmm.
like at first I was like, oh wow, another black boy. And of course I felt bad, but then it's like, no, you can't just be desensitized to it. You need to speak up. You have to use the platforms. And like you mentioned, like a lot of people like to blame the dead for their death when it's not their fault. It's like, what are they supposed to do? You're
Right.
absolutely right to slow down, because we become so desensitized to things that we're just like, okay, whatever, another day, we go on.
Yeah, and even us who love these black boys, right? We just seeing it so much and I feel like no, we need to stop and we need to feel every death, right? Or the weight of that, because the truth of it is, if my brother was white and we lived out on the main line outside of Philadelphia, he would not have been murdered before his 21st birthday. The chances
Mm,
of that would have been,
yeah.
so very, very small. So I think that we need to underscore that. We need to say it, and kind of do what we can to raise awareness, to say, listen, we don't, this is not just something just to accept. It doesn't just happen. It's a funnel. They're funneled towards this, And so I think, I'll always be saying that to the day I die, right?
Yeah, no, you're
It
absolutely
also
right.
makes me think, like, does that connect to the issue people do have with reading harder text? Like, there's on one end, we talk about being desensitized to seeing these things, but I also think people don't read historical fiction or literary fiction or certain types of narrative nonfiction because they consider it trauma porn, and
Hmm.
they use that desensitized, like, oh, we're desensitized, like that sort of thing, as an excuse,
Hmm.
um to not want to feel right, and to not want to have the deeper conversations,
Yeah.
like it's an excuse to not have to think critically. So I
Yeah.
think it's affecting us in a lot of different ways, right, where we're not, we've seen it so much that we're not reacting in the ways that we probably should be, right? We're not feeling as angry, but
Hmm.
also we're avoiding,
Yeah,
and that
the real.
avoidance is not allowing us to do the work in the ways that we should do the work, right? Because I don't think that we can really do this work without really knowing our history, right? And without
Yeah.
really knowing um what happened, why it happened, how we can stop things from reoccurring, right? Like, so if you don't want to read something, whether it's historical fiction, whether it's narrative nonfiction, whether it's a history book or whatever, if you don't want to read it because you're so concerned about your feelings, how do we do the work? Like, how do we how
Yeah.
do we move forward? I don't understand. I don't
I mean,
I
it's
don't
hard. It's hard, but we sometimes we have to go through the hard,
Yeah.
for better. I mean, and the people before us went through the hard, right?
Yeah.
So, we're here in this moment in history, and who are we to turn our backs, on feeling the hard things, right? And I feel like, that's why this book is about so many things, right? I talk about the ancestors. I talk about, because it's all the things, right? It's all wrapped up in our story and how we got there. So I think we have a personal responsibility to be accountable to the moment. And there are horrible things happening every day, right? And you do need to step away. You do need to restore, but then you got to go back in there because someone fought for us, right? you know through the years, through the history. They survived the Middle Passage. They did all those things, right? So we had that, to me, accountability to our history and ancestors, that
Yeah.
we need to still do the hard, hurtful work and looking, you
We
know
live a life of privilege, like people, we live a very privileged life, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, because we want to be able to just shut our brains off and be whimsy all the time, which is great. That's always great. There's balance in that. But I also, like you said, we have to do the hard work. And when we're avoiding constantly, we're doing ourselves a disservice all the time. We're doing ourselves a disservice. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question that's like a half kind of silly, me being funny question, that's half like a sincere, I was concerned when I read it.
Okay.
So you mentioned that you have all of my near stuff in a, I believe you said it was an old Louis Vuitton box.
It
And
is. It
you
is.
mentioned like, oh, if something were to happen, I would run back into the house against better judgment. Friend, they got the safes, right? That are like fireproof, flood proof and stuff.
Oh my
Cause I
God.
was like, she got this baby stuff in a box that's gonna go up in flames or be water damaged. Can we get you like how do friend, you
I
got to
need to
get
get
you
it.
a
You
real
know
box.
what? I moved it out of the basement, and now it's like in my bedroom closet on top
Okay.
shelf. So
Okay.
water won't.
Okay.
Okay.
But yes, But what I love about that book is I still have it, and now I can look in it.
Okay.
Like I go in that
That's
box,
good.
and it's just. And the part in my book where I have his actual letters to me, like those are still in the original envelopes and
I love
all that.
that.
So
That's
I
great.
just love handling stuff that he touched. I feel
Yes.
like objects have something
Yes.
Yeah.
of the person, some essence. It makes me feel like a certain way. So yeah, I love that box.
Yeah.
Maybe
I
I
was
need to
like,
upgrade to like a put it
yeah,
in a
we
bin.
need to get it in
Get in a
a
bin, the
waterproof
fireproof. Yeah,
safe or
yeah.
something. Cause I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's making my nerves bad. We need to get that baby stuff in something else because God forbid. 'Cause, and then you had me in here like, and I need to. My mom has like everybody's stuff. So like my great grandfather and his brothers, they were all in the military. My mom has everybody's birth certificates, military IDs, whatever, whatever. And I'm like, we got like pictures that need to go in photo albums. Like we need to really organize because they're all in boxes and stuff like that. And reading that part, I was like, oh yeah, I need to get my life in order. We need to get Shonda a box. I need to get like I was
Mm-hmm.
on Amazon scrolling because I was like, yeah, no, we got to get the stuff together. That stressed me out. That stressed me out real bad.
I'm so weak. One last question before we jump into praise for. What's one thing that's bringing you joy lately?
The summer. Oh my gosh, I know it's been hot as fire, but I am not a winter person. When the days get long, everything is possible. It's even when you wake up at 5 a.m., it's a little light out. I just, that's like, I'm like, the sun is like my battery. When it is light, I'm just like, I'm doing all this stuff now because the winter is coming. you know,
Yeah,
so it's these longer days, and it was hot and I was sweating to death over the weekend, but I'll take it any day over
It
that
really
cold that
was.
touch your bones. Mm-mm. So
It's funny you say winter is coming. I'm a Game of Thrones fan, and I
mhm.
saw George R. R. Martin is releasing a special edition of the Game of Thrones. And when I catch that old man, I'm gonna pinch him because we don't need another edition of Game of Thrones. We need the Winds of Winter. Write the
he's
dang
not
book. I
right.
need to know what happened. He's not gonna write it. He's probably gonna go meet Jesus first
Before you ever see that book at this
before we
point.
ever see that book. My grandchildren will probably get it before me.
My gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Stressing
Mm-hmm.
me out. But summer has been nice. I do like that the days are longer. I don't like the heat.
You know what? I sweat, my hair draws up, and I'm just like, it is sunny out here. And I just,
We we haven't gotten the heat yet. It's still kind of it's hot, but it's not as hot as you guys. We
No,
were
Jess.
70 something, 76 last week the high was.
oh my gosh.
It
But it's
was it felt like somebody left the oven open.
oh,
It
I
was. It
bet.
was. Yep.
It felt
I
like
bet.
when like back in the day when he was working, you left the oven open to heat the
Yep.
whole time.
Yeah,
That's what it
no, I
felt
get
like.
Hmm.
when I was home, I would walk outside. I'm originally from Florida, so I went home in June because my mom had knee replacement surgery. So I would walk outside. I'm like,
Yes.
it is like
Yeah, okay.
hell. It is. It was
To
like
better
80.
explain it
It was 80
to you,
degrees or
because
90
Florida,
almost.
you speak weather. It feels like storm season outside. It feels like a
Hmm.
hurricane is coming. That's how hot it's been.
I bet. I bet that humidity.
That's how hot it's been.
I don't miss it. But for us, it's probably gonna start to get hot around August, September.
Mm.
115, 110. Ah. It's dry. I like dry heat and humid heat. I don't know
I
which
different.
one. I don't know which one I prefer. I don't think I
Because
prefer
dry heat, your
either.
nose will bleed.
Yes. And it's different. Humidity, you're just sweating constantly, like
Yeah.
just it's
It
just
beats you down.
disgusting.
It beats you down,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah, I feel
So
like
mm-mm.
humidity, you're gonna have an asthma attack. Dry heat, you're gonna your nose gonna bleed. You just there's no way to win.
There's no way. There's absolutely no way.
There's no way.
Um, yeah, so we're gonna jump into praise for, which is a
Yeah, Shonda, do you
segment where
have
You know what? I love books that haven't gotten a big bunch of press that I like. Have you guys read this, The Mango Tree by Anna
no?
no. Okay, we
McManus?
writing that
This is
down.
very, very good. It's set in Florida. Very, lots going on. Mother-daughter relationship. It's exciting. She did a good job with this. And also, like my editor for this book, Athena Dixon, wrote The Loneliness Files. I don't know if you've
Okay.
seen this one. This is a nice one to kind of sit with. It's just talking about like what does it mean to be lonely and,
Mm,
a woman of a certain age being lonely and like how do you navigate that, and there hasn't been a lot of conversations about that. So I really those are two ones that I haven't gotten. And I don't know, have you guys seen this book, The Blackouts by Justin
I have
Torres?
seen it. I have not read
I
it
think
though.
so.
Okay. There are not a lot of books like this. It's very,
Yes.
kind of about two people, but then there's sections of the book that are blacked out from this historical document. It's
Oh,
it's
Oh.
it's
Oh, you
worth
know
it.
what?
And I
I
met
have
him.
seen
He's
this.
lovely. So I would
okay.
recommend this. It's a book that's hard to put into a category.
I
So
love
I
books
Mhm.
like that.
so I love that. And another book I read kind of that couldn't. Have you guys heard of the Stone Yard Devotional?
The Stone Yard.
Like the
So let's
first
see. I
devotional.
read in book covers, so
I was gonna say, and so we are two people that are the complete opposite. I'll know the title of something, Jess will know the book cover. So I
Okay.
have to be like, friend, the cover is green with like red squares on it. And she'll be like,
yeah.
oh, that book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that book by Charlotte Wood, I read that through twice. Usually I never read anything twice because it was just so different. This lady in this book, she just leaves her life kind of.
Australia.
She just
Oh.
goes and lives with these nuns. And it just and then it's like this whole weird thing that happens, but it's a quiet book, but it kind of you're reading it, you're like, what is this book about? And not a spoiler, but I think underneath it all is a book about grief. So I
I'll
would I
definitely
would
check
I
that
would
out.
I could recommend that.
Okay, I
These are
had two
good.
books that I wanted to talk about real quick. One of them, I've only read one story out of it via LeVar Burton's podcast that he used to have, LeVar Burton Reads.
Okay.
So that is What It Means When a Man Falls from the Sky by Leslie Neka Arima. One of the best stories I've ever heard. And I've been meaning to get my hands on this for a long time, and I finally did. So I will be reading this soon. But it also made me realize she has never put out like a novel. So I like who do I have to beg to get a novel from this lady? Because this is a short story that I think about often, even though I haven't read the rest of them. So this is something that I'll be reading soon. Anybody that is doing the reading challenge, if you need a book with 10 words in the title, this is one. I knew you would, Jess. And then this next one came across this haphazardly, and I saw that Tanana Reeve blurbed it. I've been trying to read more horror. I've just been in the mood. And it's called Where the Dead Brides Gather. I will be starting this tonight. Because the synopsis it says, Bata, a young girl tormented by nightmares, wakes up one night to find herself standing sentinel before her cousin's door. Her cousin is to get married the next morning, but only if she can escape the murderous attack of a ghost bride who used to be engaged to her groom. I
Oh,
said,
I love
why
that.
have I never heard of this book?
I ain't never seen that book before.
I've
We need
never seen
that.
it before. I was like, I don't know that I would fight a ghost bride for any of my cousins. I love them dearly. but you are on your own. Take the groom. Take him back, sister. I don't, this is not, so yeah, I will be reporting back about this because I was like, this sounds like a very good time, and why has no one said anything about it? So
Yeah,
I wanted to share this.
these are some good. Shonda, you shared some good ones too. Because now I'm gonna look up Stone Yard Devotional and
Yeah.
get the audiobook. Because I was reading synopsis. Rural Australia. She
Yeah.
doesn't believe in God
Yeah, it's
and
just
all this other. It's
really
very
that
interesting.
it has all these little parts, and you're like, what's this mean? And when a book like makes me think at the end, then I have to go back and I have to read it again. And
Wait,
that's
the
Yeah,
rare.
Stonia. So that
and
just that was on the. It was long listed, wasn't it?
yeah, it is. It's no shortlist.
Yeah,
It's
shortlist. Okay, because I'm
shortlist.
like,
Yeah.
this looks familiar.
Yeah.
And
I
Shelby, this might work for our challenge too. Hmm.
Biomes. Yep,
Yeah.
that looked like a
Mm-hmm.
desert to me.
You sure
So,
do.
Shonda, just so that you are cued into this, one
yeah.
of the prompts is for biomes. So we have to read 5 books where there are different biomes on the book covers.
Oh, on the
So
book,
like,
that's like the hinterlands on that book cover. It's like kind of wasteland, Australia, where there's nothing, the
right. So
outback. It's yeah.
it'll work. It
I
could
yeah.
be.
Yeah,
It
I
has to be
know
five
what you're
different
saying
ones.
about that. Yeah.
I
Hmm.
had farmland already. I think
I
Jess
got
has one
one.
for
I have
farmland.
one for I have one for snow and
Okay.
blizzards. Yeah,
Okay.
by Quan Berry. I haven't heard many
I
people
thought she
talk
was about to
about
say
this.
Quan Mills. I was gonna say, oh yeah, it's
No,
really
no, no,
getting deep.
no, no, no. No, the unveiling, and I have
For the
another one
unveiling.
up
Okay.
there. I have another one that's also good for snow, tundra, whatever.
It's
That
really
that
interesting
one,
how
yeah.
this challenge has really already, it's only been like 2 weeks, but it's already kind of rewired how I'm looking at books. Like I've been in bookstores and like my brain is already like, oh, how many words are in this title? Like what does this book cover actually look like? Look
Hmm.
like? Who is the author? Like it's already rewiring my brain.
And guess what? Yours is
Um
on the list too, because you got
it
brother.
is because you have brothers, so one of them is familial terms.
Okay.
So you
All
count
right.
as a
Yeah.
prompt for us.
Hmm.
So we were excited.
Yeah.
Jess, you want to do this or that? This should be
Oh,
fun.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. So this or that, just let me know which one obviously you prefer. You don't have to explain. We don't judge. We might
Okay.
ask you why at some point if it's really outlandish, but we don't judge.
Okay.
All right. So first one, would you rather be stuck in your favorite fantasy world or your favorite time period?
Time period for sure.
Oh, what time period?
1989.
Period.
The fly girl time, hip
Love it.
hop, the best. Like
Hmm.
I could just stay in 1989.
Love it. Have unlimited conversations with the character you wrote or unlimited conversations with your favorite author.
Character I wrote.
Yeah. Zora Neale Hurston or Toni Morrison?
Oh, Zora.
I got that right. I knew you were gonna say it. I knew it. I
I can
knew it.
see
I
that.
knew it.
Yeah.
I
I can
mean,
see it.
I
Zora.
can see
Her,
that. I can see
her
that.
making up her little autobiography was half fiction,
Mm-hmm.
half fable. I just love how she just moved in the world and
Mm.
made her way. I got mad respect for Toni Morrison, but
Some special
Zora.
love, Zora. Yeah, I feel that. Handwritten draft or a digital draft?
Handwritten all the way, man. On
Mm.
legal paper, you know,
Mm.
I have to write it by hand and then I'll type it, then I'll print it out, then I make edits by hand, then I go back and type it, and then that keeps going back and forth and back and forth. I feel like I think with my writing when I actually
That's
write.
good. No, I can see that. Because sometimes, like for me, when I write stuff, I remember stuff easily. So
Hmm.
Yes.
I can see that. Yeah. Would you rather reread your least favorite book every month or never write again?
Oh, killer. I had to read that least favorite book every month.
What's your least favorite book?
I can't even think. I don't know. It would be one of those silly books like the underpants books. My I'm like that. No. You know what it is? Moby Dick. Like, and in particular, the whale chapters. Just the
Yes.
whale chapters.
Yes.
I was like,
Yeah.
people were like,
No.
oh, you got to
Yeah.
get through it. I was like, I am not getting through that. Why is that in the
I'm
book?
not kidding.
I was reading along and it was there, and then I got to the whale chapters, and it's pages and pages, of just like biology in the middle of the story. I'm like, what the heck? So that I don't know, man.
So
That would be
That's
it.
that's
hilarious.
hilarious. Well, this was great. Thank you
It
so
was. Thank you
much.
so much for coming on. Where can everybody find you on socials and stuff?
Okay, so Instagram is my first name, Shonda MD Writes. That's where I'm at. You can keep up. All my stuff is there. My website. You can get the book at the press, Split Lip, or Amazon, or wherever you get your books. Maybe an indie store. Ask for it at the library, the wonderful libraries. So yes, that's me.
Perfect.
Again,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
thank
Thank you so
you. Thank
much.
you, ladies.
Everybody, y'all can find us at the League of Readers Pod on Instagram and Threads, or you can email us at the League of Readers Pod at gmail.com. And we will see you next week. Bye,
Bye,
friends.
guys.
Bye.